Hey everybody, and welcome to Tales from the Fog. I'm your host Casey, and with us, as always, is the amazing and wonderful Veronica. How are you doing?
Fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing great. And today with us we have somebody who took us down the wormhole of clairvoyance and other things. He works in the aerospace industry. He loves dachshunds and runs the Temecula Valley Dachshund Club. And he's Veronica's cousin, Mr. Jim Richards. How are you doing?
I'm
Richardson.
doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
We're here.
Yeah.
We're coming out of what year Dip and Dine was this?
It was the 11th annual Temecula Valley Dachshund Club Doxy Dip and Dine.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So 11 years in a row, you've had a herd of dachshunds and their humans in your backyard.
Yes, we have.
That's incredible.
Did you get a count this year on how many doxies?
So, someone said they were trying to count, but dachshunds, they won't stand still for the count. But we think it was 40 plus this year. So
wow.
Yeah. I did think it felt like a lot of dachshunds.
There are a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wasn't there a year where there were like 53 dachshunds that showed
We've
up?
had over 50, so it's a little more chill now. But I think more dogs in the pool than ever before. So,
yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, they were swimming.
It was hot, though.
Yeah.
But for the first time, what felt like ever, it actually got kind of overcast, which was a nice change from it being blazing hot.
It was hot during all the yard work preparing for the event, and then it was kind of cool, so everybody was more comfortable. But I always tell people when I clean the filter afterwards, I have enough hair for a whole nother dog. So
oh my gosh, I didn't
it's
even
pretty
think about
crazy.
that.
So yeah, but worth the effort. So that's why we keep doing it. Everyone has so much fun. It's worth doing it. So.
It's really special. I mean, the dog park is really cool because you get a small group of people and it's relaxed and it's kind of, it's not very long. It's a couple hours.
Yeah.
But this is, you can tell people think about it for a long time because the dishes that they bring, and they bring, lawn chairs and easy ups and all the food and snacks, and it's pretty special. Like, you can tell that people look forward to it.
Yeah, we have a core group that comes to like everything we do, and you guys are more towards that end, right? You'll come to lots of stuff, but some people come to one thing a year. Some people just come to the Christmas parade that we do in Temecula. Some people just come to the Dip and Dine. So, but it's definitely there are people we know just because of this event. So,
that's awesome. Yeah, like Willow's foster parents.
It was so cool seeing them. Yeah.
The sounds that she makes when she sees them. It's not even a bark. It's more like a song. It's like a bay, almost.
Yeah.
It's very strange. You'd worry if you didn't know that it was, a good thing.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess to start off with, is there any follow-ups with Corey Chattman? Have you talked to him recently?
Have not talked to him recently. I did, I think, email him that I listened to him on your podcast, and it was nice to learn more about him. Some of the stories he shared with you guys, he had shared with me previously, so it was really, really great show you guys did with him, and getting him on there and out there a little bit. So
yeah, I didn't realize that he was like kind of breaking the story. I mean, I thought that he had been kind of on that train for a while, but
I think he was kind of doing, the one person at a time thing. It's like, I have something to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it was when I met him, right?
Yeah.
And just like, okay, I got to talk to you. And
yeah, like being all fidgety about it. And it's just like, I don't want to, but I have to.
But the man has a gift, a severe gift. And something big is supposed to happen with that. He told me he thought that. And I definitely sensed that for him. And,
yeah,
I'll do what I can. I'm a supporter. I'm a believer in the man. So, definitely.
Wow. Cool. We're supposed to get a reading from him, and then we'll do a follow-up once we schedule that, but we haven't had a chance to schedule it with him. Okay. But he wants to do individual readings with us, and then we'll let you guys know when we find out what he has to say. That'll be be very interesting to see what happens with that.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure I am, but I don't know. Just edgy about it, which isn't a good way to go into a reading, to be edgy about it.
I'm definitely the more curious, and I think she's more afraid of the emotional side of it.
Yeah, because I'm just a big old soggy mess with, commercials make me cry. I mean, I can't. I'm probably just going to be, going through half a box of Kleenex, but, it is what it is, and it'll be something to talk about afterwards. So.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm like you, right? A good commercial will make me cry, and I just say, "Wow, that commercial was designed to make me cry, and it worked." So that person did a really good job making that commercial.
But then, do you feel guilty about that? You actually fell for it? Because that's the next step for me. Is I'm like, I fell for it. Like I'm one of the sheep.
I'm the kind of person, I go to see a movie, I'm all in. Whatever you want me to believe, I'll believe it for you for an hour or whatever, right? So same thing, your 60-second commercial, okay. I'll believe the horse is going to find the dog in Super Bowl, right? We're all going to cry at the end of the commercial, and I'm in, so.
That's interesting.
It's mini escapes, right? I mean, that's what...
Yeah,
it
is suspending disbelief.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know what it is, but, like, I can't... Like, I'll suspend that disbelief, but then I'll feel kind of weird about it afterwards. I'll be like, why did I fall for that? Or I'll try to pick apart why. Maybe because I'm uncomfortable about getting so emotional about a commercial or whatever. Maybe it's a defense mechanism. I don't know. I'll ask my shrink later, but...
Well, I'm more embarrassed, like, people see me. I'm the big 6'6" guy, right? And I'm sitting here tearing up at an Alpo commercial or something. It's like, come on.
If they only knew how important dogs are to you, then they would understand.
Yeah.
But anything. It could have been a duck,
Forget that Sarah McLachlan commercial.
Oh, I can't. I can't even. So, but that's interesting that... So, shall we go into... So we got Corey's perspective and we read your story.
Yep.
I mean, is there anything else that you want to... Like, do you want to recap? Do you want to add anything? Like, having listened to both sides now?
No, I just think as I've gotten older, I've evolved more and am more open to things that are going to be experiences, and I don't know how they're going to turn out.
Yeah.
But like we both said, I was going to just not talk to him on the flight. But then he was like, "Hey, we're going to have this dialogue," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm in." Right.
Yeah.
So just being more open-minded has really exposed me to a lot more stuff like that otherwise I would not have been open to maybe earlier in my life. And I've always been kind of a late bloomer, and so that's, I think, part of it too, just a right place in life to be open to more possibilities, and it's okay for things to not be fully explainable. I'm getting more okay with that, right?
What other kind of experiences have you had?
I've had lots of experiences starting from very young. But, as far as with the other side, like Corey was talking about, I did lose both of my parents fairly young. And when each of them passed, I had a significant experience where, my mom passed when I was, I'm going to say 20, 21. I was in college. And when she passed, I had an experience where she appeared in my doorway of my bedroom.
Wow.
And was kind of sending me a vibe that everything's going to be okay. I was a little more scared, and it was kind of like my state of consciousness wasn't, I would say, fully awake, fully aware, so it was more of a hazy, but it was definitely an experience that was not a dream. It was something more than that. And so that was unique. And then when my dad passed away, I was 28 years old. And that was, had a big impact because, you're a young person, you've lost both your parents, and you all of a sudden feel kind of alone in life, right?
Yeah.
And so I tried to go about my normal business. A couple days later, I went and played in a basketball game in an adult league in Whittier, where I was living at the time. And I got home, and I was a sweaty mess sitting on the living room floor. Took off my shoes, really tired. Sitting on the living room floor, had my shoes laying over there, and all of a sudden, this is about 3 days after my dad passed, it got really, really cold in the room, and I could just feel some energy approaching me or coming to me or through me, and one of my shoes that was laying sideways on the floor just stood straight up. And it was just like this physical thing happened right in front of me that, I passed all my physics classes. That can't happen. That just can't happen. So that was a complete awake experience where I'm observing something impossible happening. And, that just made me a total believer that there's something else out there parallel to this or aside from this that's real. So...
Did that affect the way that you see the world from an analytical or from an engineer perspective?
Yeah, it did. I mean, like I say, I tend to be more open-minded about things and realize that the thing the human race understands is a teeny tiny fraction of comprehension, right?
Yeah.
So we can't even, imagine, right? And so I think that's what, the other side is. It's that full comprehension. Corey talked about this, right?
Yeah.
That, there's no more learning. You have that full comprehension at that point. So I believe that. I mean, I enjoy learning and experiencing things, but I'm becoming more okay with, this is unexplained for right now. And it's neat to think about it in that context too, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Neat.
Then I did have one more experience that is similar. And this is why when I found it interesting, you asked Corey when you talked to him, did you ever experience a spirit that wasn't human, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the first things I asked him on the airplane was, do dogs have spirits, right?
Yeah.
Are they there too?
Yeah.
He paused, and the way he said yes made me think that it's a little different, but not out of the question.
Yeah.
Because I was on travel to Washington, D.C. on a trip, and one of my dogs, Petey, passed away while I was on that trip. And this was on maybe, Wednesday night. And Janice called me and said, hey, Petey passed away at the vet. And I heartbroken from that, not being able to be home.
Yeah.
But the next morning in my hotel, again, I'm down having my breakfast, and I'm almost done with my breakfast, and I sent you a written account of this because I started documenting the oddness so I would not lose it. But I read it recently, so I'm pretty sure this is this is accurate. But I had some fruit on my plate, and all of a sudden I'm having breakfast, I'm finishing up, and again, it gets really, really cold in this restaurant. And I'm like looking around, no one else seems cold. I'm really cold. And all of a sudden, I had some blueberries on my plate, and they started accelerating and rolling across the plate from this little pile of remaining fruit. And so one rolled across, and I looked at it, and I'm going, oh my God. Note the time. Do I have a camera with me, right?
Yeah.
So then I'm just staring at it. And then another one starts going in a slightly different direction. And I mean, it's not like the ventilation is blowing fruit across my plate, right? This is something. And so then finally I'm looking at it, and a third one, a bigger one, just really accelerated fast. Where you're going, okay, that is really off the charts, right?
Yeah.
And in the end, they made a perfect equilateral triangle on the plate in the other corner, formed this perfect triangle. And I got the sense at that time, this is my dog Petey passing through, paying me a visit across the country. So I believe, that the dogs have spirits. And we've known each other a long time. That, losing my parents was hard, but quite frankly, the little fluffy ones who really depend on you, those ones hurt.
Yeah.
So those ones hurt. So.
Yeah. I'd like to sometime explore the psychology between that. Like why it is so hard to lose a pet over the kind of like learnable coping of losing a human. I don't know. Maybe it's the emotional dependency we have on them. We don't have to deal with, like with parents, you depend on them to a point, and then you kind of segment them into a different part of your life, and then you continue on. But with dogs and cats and whatever animals you have, you never have to set them aside. Like they're always dominant in your mind. So maybe.
Yeah. No, they depend on you completely. And so that responsibility, if you really own it, it's, that, like you say, that parent relationship, it dwindles to a different thing as you get mature and move out and start your own life.
Yeah.
But those pets are there and depend on you. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, every pet you've ever had is at the lottery. They're so lucky to end up with you.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about a news item that actually just kind of happened, I believe, last week. And the congressional, what are they called? it's a congressional committee they oversee the military, different branches of military.
Yep.
And they just approved, like 60-1, the United States Space Corps, which in its, in the article that I read that kind of listed what the Space Corps is going to be, it's going to fall under the Air Force, and it's going to train soldiers to fight in space. Now, you're a really forward-thinking kind of person. It's sort of the area that you work in, not necessarily with people, but with technology. My first thought, and what the thought of many people of the articles that I read was like, oh, we're going to have humans in space shooting lasers or something. I don't know what. But then after thinking about it, I was like, okay, well, this is probably more like maybe a drone kind of program where it's going to be people using things in space via telepresence or via, just, video game style. Do you see a future where we have like a military base in space with like X-Wings and TIE fighters and stuff rolling around?
Or it's like Ender's Game?
Yeah, well, like you say, things are moving more to remote warfare.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, now when a drone shoots at something in Pakistan, the person flying that is in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Right? So we're already there, but you talk about the different domains, right? We're all familiar with land, sea, air.
Yeah.
But the new domains of space and cyber are coming, and those are new domains, and especially cyber, less a tangible thing. But, you do, when aircraft first started coming in to being used for military, it was who dominates the air, right?
Yeah.
Because you dominate the air, you're going to pretty much call the shots and win the war, right? Well, that new domain where you've really got to control it is now space, right?
Yeah.
So I don't foresee that we'll have the space station up there with all these X-Wing fighters ready to go. I don't think it'll be like that, although that's more fun to watch at the movies.
Yeah.
But it will be. It is a domain that we need to control the sensors and effects that are there in that domain. So, and I thought you were going to ask me about the article because I read up on this, but a couple weeks ago, they actually used a high energy laser weapon. They fired one off of a Apache helicopter at a fixed target on the ground. And those types of weapons, the high energy lasers, are really, really, I think, going to be a game changer in the more traditional domains of land, sea, air.
Yeah.
Where, you don't have to get something from here to there. You shoot the laser from here to there.
Yeah.
And take it out, right? I think I don't know this, so I'm just gotta keep my disclaimers ducks in a row here. But I would be surprised if a North Korean missile headed the wrong way if we couldn't take it out with a high energy weapon of some kind already. So that's a card you don't want to play.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
So
I know they supposedly just tested a what do they call it, a hypersonic missile out of Australia.
Yeah.
Which is, how fast does a hypersonic missile go?
Hypersonic, anything up
it's
to
like,
Mach 10. I mean, so yeah.
Whoa.
It's fast.
Yeah.
But a laser's faster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a hypersonic, it's just so fast that you never see it coming, right? I mean, even when the SR-71 was around flying Mach 2 to 3, right? By the time you hear it, it's already past you. It's just its sound is just starting to arrive at you.
Yeah.
And that's difficult for people to process. People are not good sensors for things like that, right? So
it doesn't seem like humans are good sensors for much.
Yeah.
That's why we invented all these things.
Build stuff.
Right.
So then what is that in comparison to the tried and true nuclear arsenal? I mean, is having something more targeted a little bit more convenient?
So the thing is propagation delay, right? So anything that's not moving at the speed of light, you have time to detect it and react and fire a countermeasure. And my company Raytheon is actually doing work, and it's been in the news. You've probably seen it, where we'll fire an ICBM target from Kwajalein Atoll, and then from Vandenberg, will fire the intercept missile up to do it. And that's a kinetic effect. I mean, that's hitting a bullet with a bullet, literally.
Yeah.
Right? So that exists, and we've been working on that for, decades, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's actively being tested, and that's the more traditional type of defense for, ballistic missiles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So, yeah. But with the high energy laser, you don't have to predict where it's going to be and lead it, because it's the speed of light. You just point at it.
You just point,
right?
Yeah.
So there's no more pursuit guidance or lead guidance. There's just point and shoot.
Because it's just so fast. It's like
it's like a laser pointer that explodes things.
Yeah. But I mean, you guys, like paintball, someone's running, you have to lead them, right? Or like throwing a football at a receiver, right?
Yeah.
You throw it where they are, then things change, and now it's behind and you've missed.
Yeah.
So, but with a light weapon, just no matter how fast it's going, you just point it at where it is. And
so, how far are we from like lightsabers and laser pistols?
I saw something in the news about that too. I'm trying to remember what that was. But there was actually I think it's a YouTube video with a quote unquote lightsaber where they had this blue laser that they're putting stuff in, and it's just like frying everything. So,
oh man, is that the same kind of technology?
I think it's just.
I think from what they said, like a real lightsaber is like a plasma.
Yeah.
Like some kind of plasma technology. That way it's contained. Like if it's light like a laser, your lightsaber would just go to space or something.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's some kind of plasma thing.
Yeah, it has to contain all that energy.
Yeah.
But then be permeable. Is plasma permeable? Because, stuff goes kind of...
Ask George Lucas.
Well, let's get him on the podcast. So, you said you had a lot of awesome questions.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about, I don't know, do you believe in UFOs at all?
So I believe there are things that are flying that we have not identified.
So in that case, yes. Whether or not they're extraterrestrial or not is up for debate. But what I wanted to know is, like, say you wanted to build a vehicle that was both terrestrial, they could fly within the atmosphere, and into space. Not necessarily, let's not even say like long distances through space. Let's just say you want to be able to go easily between the two. What kind of engine technology would be the most like futuristic thinking? Like what kind of engine technology would you need in order to make something like that doable? Well,
traditionally there's air breathing, right?
Yeah.
Like jet engines and such, and in space there's rockets and pulse motors and plasma type electric engines as well. So to do both becomes more difficult, and for years there have been stories of the pulse jets that the exhaust looks like the donuts on a rope kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Area 51.
They tested that on Mythbusters. Yeah. They did like the pulse engine kind of.
So the question is, where does that technology come from? And forget, I think there's some history with that. It's like, the flying wing was around in the 40s and then went away and then came back. So I think that's similar with that type of engine technology. There was some research done and the technology couldn't support it or make it safe, and then it's starting to come back. So I don't know if there is one thing. SSTO, single stage to orbit, has been kind of one of the holy grails in aerospace since I started my career. And how do you do that? You want to take off horizontal on a runway and go to outer space and deliver a payload and come back down and land horizontal on a runway.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say and difficult to do. The Pegasus rockets that, you fly up to very high altitude in an F-15 and you launch a rocket that then completes the satellite delivery into orbit. That's kind of the closest we have, but even that has expendables, right?
Yeah.
So the space shuttle, great, right? But kind of not what you're talking about either. So
I know like people have been working on ion engines for a while, but they're the kind of thing that takes a long time to kind of build up speed or something like that right now.
So you have to orbit Earth once before you can actually get the altitude you need to break orbit?
Maybe even longer than that. It's the kind of thing where it's like, let's say they were sending something to Pluto. You would start the ion engine and it would go like 3 miles an hour, but then that would double and then double and then double and then double and double. And then eventually, like when it gets around Saturn, it's going like thousands and thousands and thousands of miles an hour. But it just takes a long time for it to
slowing it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it hits Pluto, it'll slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing with the solar sails, right?
Yeah.
Put a big enough sail out there, but eventually you get further away from the sun, so you lose steam.
I know that there was an X Prize. I don't think anybody won the X Prize, but with the, they're trying to design a space elevator. And so there was one that was using I believe it was like a carbon tube, nanotube technology or something. And then there was another one that was really interesting where they had, I guess you could call it a stationary, but it moved around, but it was like a laser. And the bottom of the capsule had basically like a shield, and the laser would shoot a bunch of beams and it would accelerate the thing up. And then it would the computer would try to control it so that the capsule stayed on a straight trajectory up to space. And I think they only got it up to about 100 feet in the air before it flew off and crashed. But is there any chance of doing laser assisted launches in the future?
I don't know a lot about that, but I think that that's possible. Anything you can use for propulsion. The problem with leaving Earth is escape velocity, right?
Yeah.
You got to get going pretty fast to get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, I don't think we'll see the technologies change from the tried and true stuff. They want to do more of the, to have things be more safe and more reliable, because we still lose satellites, the global community, right? Not every launch is a success, and they're expensive. I know working on GPS, still a lot of finger crossing when we launch GPS satellites because they're not cheap and they take a long time to build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like the Facebook satellite that blew up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is there any point so you're on planet Earth and you're trying to leave planet Earth, is there any point where the laws of physics themselves start to morph into something else?
No.
So they're that consistent.
So pretty much what we know,
at
least, is consistent with that part of it.
Wow.
I know the laws of physics don't really start getting screwy till you get down to the subatomical level.
Right.
Which is actually really cool, because there was just an article where I believe it was Chinese scientists just teleported a photon to a satellite in space. And it's not exactly teleportation, but they used quantum entanglement. So there was basically a piece of matter up in a satellite, and they changed its entangled matter on the ground, and it instantaneously changed up in space. So it wasn't quite teleportation like they were reporting it, but it's still pretty cool.
Well, I think about that a lot. One of the questions you get asked a lot is, so you think of Star Trek, right? We have the communication now where I can tap my chest and talk to someone far away, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing is, the transporting a human from here to there, right?
Yeah.
Scramble you up and send you up there and re-put you together.
Yeah.
So the question is, let's say we could do that. Okay. Let's say we could take you apart to the subatomic level or atomic level, ship you up there through some means and reassemble you. Well, and everything is the same. Every thought you have, every memory you have, it's all put back together correctly. But is it still you? Or did we kill you down here and we recreated a really good copy up there that no one can tell is not you, and you even think is still you, but is it not you? And so,
did your soul also? Isn't there the constant chase of, does your soul have weight? And does it, when a body dies, does it then get just a little bit lighter? And then can you then identify it in your whole process? Because in that scan, I'm sure you're identifying cells. One of them's got to be your soul. Does it travel too?
Good question.
I'm under the assumption that you die. But then I've always had this thought. So they've taken you apart, right, to whatever, every little molecule in your body, and they've shipped it to another place. While they're doing that, they could just scrub you and be like, oh, that's a cancerless cell. Let's delete that. Let's do this. Let's fix these cells. And then you show up. So basically, you could potentially live forever as long as you keep teleporting yourself. Because it's just going to fix your cells and your body's not going to degrade at the same level. Mm-hmm. And so potentially you could just live forever and you would look young and they just keep teleporting you. And as long
that
as
sounds
you keep
like a
doing
good
it.
end game. But in the process, imagine how many cells they're going to mess up.
Well, I would not want to be the first person to test.
You're going to end up a
teleporter.
bowl of pudding on the other side of just cells. Yes. But at least,
inside out.
But it's kind of like the frog in the blender. Is it still a frog? You know, you put the frog in the blender, you turn on the blender, it's soup now, but it's still technically a frog.
All the molecules are there.
All the molecules, everything that makes it a frog is there. However,
it's not a happy frog.
Yeah, it is not a frog that's going to be hopping anytime soon. So then, is it still a frog?
You know, you mentioned the soul having weight, and I saw something when I was really young where they had these people that were terminally ill and were going to die imminently.
Yeah.
They put them on these sensitive scales. Have you seen this?
I've heard
And
that.
at the exact moment of death, you could see the needle go.
There's a TV show.
But is that the weight of air in their lungs?
No.
Is that the weight of gas in their body? Like, we don't know.
There was a TV show called Dark Matters.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen it. You can occasionally, it's been canceled for a long time. I think it was like early 90s or maybe late 80s. And they actually did a story on that. And yeah, it was one of the cool things that they did.
So what did they determine?
I think even back then, modern scientists were like, well, there was a lot of flaws in what they did. So it was basically inconclusive. Because, and now I think moral and ethics don't allow certain kinds of what they would need to do to test it. I don't think they'd be allowed to actually do to test it.
A little outside the scope of Mythbusters.
Yeah.
That's interesting, though, because kind of going back to teleportation, doesn't that kind of walk the line of what is moral and ethical? Because you're deconstructing a person and reassembling them somewhere else. And then, like, the question you had, like, is that the same person, or did that first person die and dissolve? And then just, if you're transporting matter, I mean, everything's matter and stuff, but it's how, but then, like, that's kind of like the ultimate, like, existential question, like, what are we? Yeah. Because if you dissolve something, send its materials over here and rebuild it, like, it's just stuff, it's molecules, it's things, but what makes you you? You know, what makes a dog a dog? Is it the molecules, or is it something else? And,
you know, I've since I was little, I used to think, you know, you can take a person and cut off their finger and they're going to live, and right. But what's the one molecule that you take away that's the one?
Yeah.
That now they die, right? So it's kind of along those same lines, right?
Isn't that the thought process of people who torture other people? They're like, what little sliver can I cut so that this person dies?
No, that's your guys' hot stuff.
And then just don't cut that one.
Well, I think maybe part of it, you know, if you want to talk about is a person and what can you do that then makes them kind of not that person. They're still alive, but they're kind of dead. It'd be like a lobotomy, right? Yeah. Because they're still alive, but they're definitely not the person that they were 5 minutes ago before you did it.
That's another question I had with this whole teleportation action is, so you're sending stuff and it's going back together. Memories are imprints on the brain, right? It's like different electrical things that are changing the actual composition of your brain. So when you're getting rebuilt, is it being rebuilt as if you were an infant with no recorded stuff, or is it recording all of those little lines that you've made your whole life?
Well, it's like a computer memory, right? It's ultimately a bunch of bits, ones and zeros, right?
Yeah.
You want to get, so your brain's the same way theoretically, right? At some level. So if we don't, scramble the ones and zeros, then we put you back together with all the exact same thoughts and memories and experiences and feelings, and
so nothing would have changed.
Yeah.
All the little wrinkles would be there.
It's interesting.
That's important. But if you can do that, then you can go through and erase memories that you do not want anymore.
And we talk about one of the big things today where they're doing more research is with PTSD in soldiers. And if we had that ability to go in and erase a traumatic experience. And a really interesting thing I read, I have a good friend who I refereed basketball with, actually, but he's a retired Marine, and now he runs a center for USC. His name is Mike McDowell, and he's trying to help soldiers with these kinds of problems and do things like that. But years ago, I read this article. We do a little bit of work with gamification at work, about how you can gamify things to make them more engaging, and the learning you get sticks better, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things they discovered was that, if a soldier goes out and they have a traumatic mission where something really bad happens, they lose a bunch of people, something, the best thing they can do to prevent the future PTSD is make that guy play Tetris for 30 minutes.
Really?
It actually almost negates anything they saw or did. Playing Tetris. If you Google PTSD Tetris, it's really amazing. That's kind of the tip of the iceberg, I think, that by just having the mind change its state to this other, I'm now playing this game, of just, shooting little blocks or whatever, that it can really have a profound impact on how you experience that, or preventing flashbacks and all those kinds of things. It's really, and we think the solutions are supposed to be so much harder, but sometimes the solutions are simple. And I talk about, things that you can't really explain, but my God, let's accept it. If it works, it's okay to not know why. If okay, it works. Let's help these people.
Yeah. So is there like a time frame on that? Is like, they've just had a crazy mission that get picked up in a Black Hawk helicopter, and like the medic just hands them a Game Boy or something? Like, is it like an immediate? Is there a time frame within which, before the memory is created, that it needs to be done?
The morphine or the Game Boy?
I recall the article said within the first couple hours is best. So it would be like when you return from patrol. Yeah. That you would, and it's hard because we've just been through this, and I need you to sit down and do this. Right.
Yeah.
But if it becomes part of the regimen where, after every patrol, we're expected to go do this no matter what happens, then maybe that helps, and how it works. But seriously, look up PTSD and Tetris, and I think
interesting. That could be really good for a lot of other things, a lot of traumatic events.
But that actually makes sense, because somewhere where there's that constant research about short-term memory and long-term memory, and do things actually get sent from short-term to long-term, or are they actually being recorded at the same time, but short-term memory is a little less sticky? Yeah. And at this point, you're kind of like almost preventing those traumatic things from being able to be revisited. Like, they're still there, but if you don't dwell on it, like, kind of like if you, say something really stupid and you're embarrassed about it and you keep going back to it, which happens if you have anxiety. But this could be a way to kind of, instead of focusing on those things, that will continue to give you those problems. And then the more you replay it, the worse it gets. If you focus on something else before those things have time to those, almost like muscle memory lines to solidify, if you do something else first, maybe those lines never have a chance to solidify. So you don't have that long-term memory problem.
I've read that it both ways, where people who are already having flashbacks can go do something like a Tetris, and it'll help relieve their immediate symptoms. But the ideal thing is to do it right when it happens, to prevent the flashbacks in the first place.
Yeah, prevent the imprint on the memory.
Yeah. But things like that really continue to, intrigue me, and I give a lot of talks to universities about, innovation and, getting back to just, looking to nature and how the brain works, and not having to understand everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem, and I'm the first victim here, is as an engineer, I want to understand everything, how it works, but something you just got to go, okay, that works, we're doing that. And we'll circle back and figure out why it works or how it works later. Yeah. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah. But that's a lot of the fun, is figuring out the why. You observe and you accept things for, the result that you're given. But part of the fun and, part of the ability that we have as humans is to be able to dissect those things and kind of try to figure out why. But it's things like with Corey, where you've seen it happen, and it is what it is. But then, I'm not an engineer. I'm not educated like that at all, but I really like to problem solve. And I think that's your fault for giving me puzzles when I was 10. But I have thought about him so many times, trying to figure out how did he do it? What does he hear? trying to figure out the steps that it takes to get to that end result, which we were witness to. Like, that's like, it's got to be a daily chase to try to figure out how it was done.
But I think that's one of the beautiful things about Corey is he's not asking those questions about it.
He just,
right?
he just accepts it. And he's like, all right, that's how it is.
You accept it. And you know, it's not just, you know, the human side. You know, any problem you have, and I've learned to do this now. First thing I say does nature have a similar problem?
Yeah.
Right. How does nature solve this problem? And there's all kinds of, examples. This first occurred to me several years ago. I was at Cal Poly Pomona, looking at some of the senior projects, and they had a little research money. They were trying to figure out how to make helicopter rotor blades not so loud, right?
Yeah.
And so a student said, well, I'm going to make the leading edge, I'm going to have it have humps like a whale's fin and just see what happens. And sure enough, way quieter, way quieter.
Wow.
Like orders of magnitude quieter.
Yeah.
Just by doing something nature had done. You know, nature evolved the shape of that whale fin to be that way for a reason. You know, and you can go into the aerodynamics. Now we know it creates mini stalls and all this stuff and explain why. But, you know, look to that. Look to nature and say, is there a similar problem in nature? So it's really, really amazing the examples you can find. And, you know, one of the most amazing instruments there is a dog's nose, right? There are certain types of cancers, ovarian cancers, that we really don't have the technology to look at a tissue sample and see if it has it or not. Best thing you can do is get a dog that's trained to tell you this one has it, that one doesn't. And that's still the leading technology, if you know, is Fido, right? So
are you trying to find the science that mimics nature to try to find whatever, you know, olfactory response causing molecule is in there that we can't find through a microscope?
Yeah, because if they can make a computer sniffer that can sniff out that molecule, it's like the what is that? There's like they call it like the Popcorn Lemur or something. Like his pee has the same molecules that are in the butter of popcorn at the movie theater, and so you can smell it. Because you'll be in the jungle and be like, wow, it smells like movie theater popcorn out here. And sure enough, there'll be like a lemur in the tree.
There's a lemur nearby, and he just peed on your shoulder.
And so it's kind of like one of those things, like, you know, maybe if they can figure out what molecule is causing the dog to be able to sniff out, then they can make a computer that can test that as well.
But if
and whether it's
honest,
something that's being
fun.
extruded in your sweat, or is it, you know, a chemical change in your body's in some other way that's making like a certain pheromone come out.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll be able to figure that out and then test for it. But yeah.
But I mean, if all diagnoses were made by dogs, I'd be okay with that too. I don't need a machine to tell me. I would rather have a dog tell me, because then like the news is not so bad. Be like, you have cancer, but look at that face.
Yeah.
You know, that would just make it more palatable for me.
I thought I would, you know, hoped I would be prepared for today, but I was not prepared for the Popcorn Lemur. You got me on that one, you guys. So
I learned a lot of weird things in my life. So
we listen to a lot of podcasts, and in podcasts you find some weird information.
Cover a lot of ground, yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like today's version of reading the newspaper. Is you listen to podcasts. Like we have a lot of like BBC 5, BBC 4, and that's just a lot of just news. A lot of it is science based.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the motivation for a lot of things that we like spend our time like chewing on, like really thinking about, is based off of that podcast. That line of thinking. So what else? So we've covered some spooky things that you've been through. What's the most, aside from dealing with Corey, what's the most recent thing that's happened to you?
So it's funny. A lot of odd things happen to me. for a scientist, and I shrug them off. And so lately, just had my anniversary, right? And
congratulations.
We were married on July 11th, 7/11. Okay. And I got to tell you, that number, 7/11, pops up so much, and not just driving by convenience stores.
It's all about the
but I mean, I'll wake up and look at the clock and it says 7/11.
Yeah.
And I don't know if my body is just tuned to my body clock is saying, okay, look now. And it says that.
Yeah.
Or it could be blue car syndrome or something like that.
But I'll be driving in traffic and the car I'm behind, the license plate has 7-Eleven in it.
Yeah.
It's just, it pops up, I could do the math, but it pops up statistically way, way more than it should.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is, but
Have you actually done that math to figure out if it's statistically average or?
I have.
I figured you would have because, you could do that.
Yeah.
You could drive for a year and see one, and I see them like all the time. So right in front of me and stuff. So it's just one of those weird things where I just kind of take it tongue in cheek. And it's funny. After talking to Corey, my sister, and you never knew my sister.
I didn't.
She passed away when I was 18. So when I was young, I was 16. She was 18. So, but we never had a good relationship. She was always, I'd have to say she was mean to me. Right.
Yeah.
And I got the sense from him that, that would have changed by this point in our life, certainly.
Sure.
But it's always been kind of difficult because that's kind of where it was left. Right.
Yeah.
But now it's like, so, I mow the grass and do my chores. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm old school. I have a blower, but I don't want my neighbors to just see me blowing everything in the street. So I sweep everything up with a broom first, do the best I can, then I blow the residual out. Right?
Yeah.
Be a good, and I like showing, this is how much I would have blown out into the street in this bucket right here. But whenever I am sweeping, it can be the stillest day there ever was. And when I'm sweeping, the breeze comes up and blows it around. And I'm convinced that's my sister just messing with me. It's like so 100% sure, that it's just, okay, we have a sense of humor here.
Yeah.
Got it, right?
Do you think that's why she was so emotional when she came back? Because she's like, I wish we could have ended on a different note than that.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And kids will be kids. And
yeah, I mean, 18, you guys were just puppies. 16 and 18.
Yeah.
So, and my brother was close. My brother, it's interesting. I sent him the written story, right? Actually, I sent it to his wife and said, read this to my brother. But he talks about my sister all the time. And I met Corey flying home from visiting my brother.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Which is interesting.
My brother's immediate reation to the story was, well, I wish Betty would have shut up so Bunny could have said more. My sister could have said more. I'm like, okay, well,
yeah.
I don't know about that, but.
But in a room, if they were both in the same room, which do you think would have tried to say more? It'd be like who they were in life.
Thanksgiving, like who's the loudest family member at Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Right.
But it's when I had that experience with Corey, it was like the 4 people came through, and my two grandparents on my dad's side, and I had maybe seen them once or twice in my life when I was little, like 4 or 5 years old. Knew enough to know who they were when he was describing them.
Yeah.
But your mom, Claudia, knew them a lot better than I did, and she was excited to hear about.
Oh, really? She did?
Part of it, yeah.
Oh, good.
So, because Connecticut connection, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Right? They were all in Connecticut while we were in California.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, because my grandma, my mom's mom was out there.
Yeah, that's who this was. The Maud was your mom's, Aunt Barbara's mom. So.
Yes. Oh, okay. So my great grandmother.
Sorry, we're doing the family tree on your.
Yeah,
your
that's cool.
Well, it kind of puts it in perspective. So it's like, for the audience's sake, this isn't just some stranger that I know. I mean, this is my mom's cousin.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I call him Cousin Jim.
Yeah.
But, there is a family tree to be talked about.
I think it's funny that, for years when I started coaching you in high jump in high school, since those days, I've always called you my stunt daughter, and now it's like you are doing stunts. I think that is so beautifully full circle that my stunt daughter is a stunt daughter now.
That's your fault that this is all happening. I see how it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you actually wrote a book on high jumping, right? So how did that come about? And there's you had a mathematical equation or something for how to best do a high jump?
So it's all physics. And the way I got into coaching was this one here.
Hello.
She's going into high school at OLU and was going to be a freshman. Said, hey, I'm going to high jump. I said, hey, I did that in high school. Maybe I'll come out and watch.
And I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was like, you did? That's awesome.
So I went out to quote unquote watch, and the next thing I know, I've been coaching 20 years now.
But you were like someone needed to run the event.
But that was after you had already been doing it. You were
Really?
in, I want to say Orange County Invitational or something in Irvine, and the guy running it was, and I don't like to complain about people, but was so unskilled at what he was doing.
Yeah.
I wrote a letter and said, you really need to get someone who can do that better. And the person emailed back and said, I think you just volunteered to do it next year. I said, okay.
If you can recognize that it's done badly, chances are you're knowledgeable enough to at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
But the book, I mean, so it's, coaching is really interesting. There is a lot of physics behind it, obviously. But the big part of it is not just telling the kids what to do what I say, why, because, but getting them to understand how everything works and some of the physics behind it.
Yeah.
Empower them. So the knowledge really came from that, because by the time I was finishing up coaching Veronica, there was a lot of new terminology we had developed and ways to think about things. So at one point I said, I got to start writing all this down. And so I did that. And we say book, it's not published. It's still more of a manuscript than a book that I give freely to anyone who high jumps and cares to read a little. Mm-hmm. But I think it does simplify it and break it down. And I still use it to this day and, coach those same methods. So
that's cool.
I've been reading it. It's really interesting. I mean, the formatting is still kind of weird because like it's like stacking on top of itself, and that just happens when it's still in manuscript form and not in a finished thing. But it's a very smart book. I mean, you're a smart dude. You are. I mean, I think it's safe to say that you're the smartest person that I know. You're definitely one of the most educated people that I know. But you apply that smarts to a lot of different things in a way that's actually practical, and you can tell when reading this book. It's just it's a draft of many. But you can really tell you know what you're talking about. And it's really cool to read, having done it. I mean, oh my God, this is 17 years ago. How long were we jumping together? It was ages ago. But it comes back after reading the book, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's all written out. The things that you just do are actually written out, and it's beautiful to see.
The simple things you do, we explain what you want to do, why you want to do it, but then how do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult part of it is, I can understand it completely in my mind, but if I can't articulate it in a way that a high school kid can understand it well enough to then do this simple action.
Yeah.
And that's the trick.
That's
being
the
able to
trick,
communicate it.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the trick of any educator, is being able to take what you understand and communicate it in a way that somebody else may need to learn it a different way that you did. But do you understand it enough to put a different spin on it to communicate it efficiently? And
I think everybody is expert enough in something that they could, quote unquote, write a book, at least write down what you know, and start articulating those things to share them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think the biggest crime is that if you are an expert in something, that it all stays in your brain, and that's something that when I started as an engineer in 1985, a long time ago, the old timers, job security was, I don't tell anybody my secrets, and I play it close to the vest.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
right?
You still see that.
And I put stuff in my code, and no one can figure out how this software works with me.
Yeah.
Right? And I say that's lack of confidence, right?
Yeah.
That you need to build in the job security.
Yeah.
And I try to be the total opposite end of the spectrum. I'll tell you everything I know, how to do everything, because I know I'm going to learn something new that I didn't know yesterday.
Yeah,
right?
because what I've found, I operate a lot of the same way, and I just kind of lay out my cards on the table and this is everything I know about it. And a lot of times there's somebody in the room that thinks a little bit differently than you, and they'll bring up something that you've never even thought of. Mm-hmm. And then it totally gets your brain working in another direction that you didn't know existed until they brought up that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just explaining it to somebody and everything that you know will actually trigger something else in your brain, and you'll learn something just by explaining what
That's
you already
the power
know.
of brainstorming. So I say something that triggers you to say something, and that triggers me to think a new thought.
Yep.
And all of a sudden we're off. And I just taught a course at work on brainstorming techniques and living the innovative lifestyle, I call it.
Oh, neat.
About how you can, don't just come to work and be an engineer 9 to 5, but you take these problems with you and you live them. And one of my favorite stories is we've been thinking about a GPS denied problem, about how you can drive an autonomous car in New York where there's GPS signals bounce and you get tons of multipath.
Yeah.
And thinking about this problem and in tunnels you can't see satellites, and in parking garages you can't see satellites. Mm-hmm. And so one night I'm tired, I'm in the market, I'm scanning my groceries, and it occurs to me as the barcode goes over the scanner, I said, I wonder if it, I know it can read it, but I wonder if it knows where it is. And then that thought from literally the supermarket said, I bet if I walked down an aisle with a barcode reader and read all the boxes, it would know where I am in the store based on the barcodes I'm reading.
So if you put those barcodes in the street so that your car can read those. It's
now a patent, and Cal State Fullerton is building one, but it's basically every light post would have a barcode on it, and you can triangulate from light posts.
That's really interesting, because one of the original ideas for virtual reality that was being worked on by a company up in Washington, the idea is how do you track a body in a room, right? Mm-hmm. And so what they did is on the headset and on the back of the headset, and I believe maybe on the sides, they had little cameras that could read those QR codes. So those weird little codes. Yep. And they put those all around the room. Mm-hmm. And each code had a different,
like
locational idea. And so as you moved around the room, it knew your orientation within the room, and that's how they could track you around the room. So it's kind of the same idea.
Similar. Yes. Yeah. Yes, similar. So,
is that your patent?
It's not the QR code one, but the other one, yeah.
Well, I think the QR code one they gave up for what they call lighthouses, which is an IR, I believe it's a laser blaster. It's a little, they call it a lighthouse because it's a little laser thing that spins around and around and around, and it can track you a lot more accurately. Yeah. But they're very expensive.
So that's the other thing, do it cheaply, right? Ours literally does it from camera images. It's just like a camera on your phone, right? That you would use.
So the same setup, that's pretty easy to retrofit into existing cars. I mean, it's something that you just kind of add it on, and then it just scans the world around it and looks for these codes. Yeah,
there are special lenses you can put on cameras that give a 360-degree view. So our team played with some of those and did various things. It's pretty neat, though. To me, the thing I like best about it is you literally solve the problem in the grocery store. Another friend at work says he woke up one morning and he all of a sudden his doctoral thesis, the solution to the big equation, he just knew it, and that just had to go write it down. He thought of it while he was sleeping.
Yeah,
so, those things really do happen. The mind doesn't turn off. Yeah. So.
Exactly.
So, but
if it did, you would die.
Yeah.
But even after you die, it still keeps going. But so just to build a little bit of street cred, so you quickly
for you or me?
For you.
Okay.
So I asked you if that was your patent, and you're like, not that one that we were talking about, but the previously one. Yes. You just blew over the fact that you have a patent, sir, and not only do you have one patent, you have many. So what I want to, because this is one of the things that I think is super cool, is that my super smart cousin has legitimate patents recorded at the patent office that are actually being used and licensed by other people. So just for me, can you tell us what patents you have?
So this is funny, because when I listened to you talk to Corey, you were like, you mentioned this, right? And you were like,
which part?
I think he's got like 8 or 9. And I'm like, no. Giving me a little too much credit there.
That's 45.
I said I have 7.
Okay.
Right? Well, then about a little while after that, I learned that another one got granted that I didn't even know about.
You're welcome.
So when you said 8, you were actually right. I just didn't know you were right at the time. So it's actually kind of funny. So I have 8.
Yay!
So and for various things, mostly in intelligent transportation. Raytheon did a lot of work in that in the 2007 through now, basically, right?
Yeah.
So that led to a lot of opportunities. So, the opportunities are there, but you also gotta, you do need to think of things differently. And the neat part about it was learning to defend, and it's a new language. It's like learning French or something. The way, if you read one, it's It's like French the first time you read one.
It's really complicated.
You learn to do it. And then, so there's 8 through work, and then the high jump patent I have filed, right? Mm-hmm. With a high jumper came up with an idea. That's a good story. But so that's a 9th one that's out there that I'm confident that will be granted when the time comes. Yeah. But those, just a matter of realizing, I think there's. Can I share that story?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm at high jump practice with my star high jumper McKenna, and she's starting to. So one of the things about high jump is the bar is at a certain height, 5 feet, right?
Yeah.
And if you do boom, I nail it and I clear it by a ton, you get credit for 5 feet. It's not like a long jump where if you nail one, you go out in the sand. It's like woohoo.
Yeah.
You go measure and you get full credit, right? Mm-hmm. High jump, it's like sometimes you make it by a lot and don't get credit. So she was saying, couldn't we have like some infrared beams stacked up and so that we could like see how high above it you actually cleared?
Yeah.
And I'm saying, yeah, we could do that. And she goes, maybe that's a patent. And so I looked and it is a patent by someone in Germany who owns that patent. I said, well, so it doesn't mean we can't make one to play with and learn from, right?
Yeah.
So I put together some parts on my little Arduino board and my 3D printer. I printed some LED holders to start making some parts. And so when I showed them to her, she says, "Oh, that's really cool. Does it know where you are, and does it tell you when to kick your legs up?" I'm like, no.
Oh, that would be so.
I said, awesome. That is so not what it does. Let me explain to you again, and listen carefully this time. Let me explain to you what it does. It just measures how high above the bar you are. The next day, I'm driving in my car, and I realized that her question contained a vision that I did not have. Yeah. A vision of, does it know where you are?
Yes.
And can it tell you when to kick your legs
So
up?
more instead of a straight line, like an array.
It's an array.
Tell where you are.
Yes. So so from that we looked. There was no patent for that. So I worked for close to a year and a half with her and with a patent lawyer to file that. Wow. And that's the one I'm most proud of because it's 17 years and 1 week old at the time. She had that vision, and she just still doesn't understand that it's a big deal. We go to conferences with engineers, a bunch of 50-year-old guys like me, go to conferences and spend a week trying to think of someone no one's ever thought of, and here a 17-year-old blurts it out as a question. But it's up to those of us who have the experience to, and I glossed over it at first, right? No, that's not what it does. But you got to back up and say, does that question contain a vision that I don't have and I need to dial in on?
That sounds like the bottom line of innovation itself. Does that question have some weight?
Yeah. And so my company's doing a big article on it, and
that's cool.
Like no big deal.
But that's the ultimate, to help a kid take that through and not just leave it there.
So have you built a prototype of the finished product?
Of the what?
Of the finished thing, of like the whole array of like where the body is and
So that's part of the reason it took so long to get to filing it was because we had a really good patent lawyer who asked a lot of really tough questions and said, how are you going to have it know where you are? And I'm like, I got it right here in my head. And I know, no, I want to see. So I had to do a lot of the legwork, the engineering, right? Sure. And quite frankly, that's the part that, any good engineer could do that. It takes time to walk through that, but that vision is the thing that is hard to have.
Yeah.
So,
what's interesting is with Casey, almost every day I have a notebook that says "Trust Your Crazy Ideas" that I stole from Casey. I bought it for Casey because every day I swear to God the man has $1 million idea, like a new invention, a new something that a problem. Like he'd identify a problem, find a solution that makes complete sense, and I bought him the notebook to write it down because I wanted him to find someone who could actually build the thing of whatever it is that comes out of
That's the problem, is having the ingenuity and the understanding of what the problem is and how to fix it, but then how to actually build the thing to make that problem
or write the process
to fix that problem or whatever, what I mean?
And like,
so it's like you can come up with the idea, but then it's like, how do you follow that through?
Well, and so you don't have to build one to get a patent granted, right? You have to be able to convince a patent examiner that your idea will work when built.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's
So you don't
patents
need
for
proof,
perpetual motion machines and stuff like that. So
Right. Oh,
True.
my favorite patent is the exercising a cat with a laser.
Yeah.
There's a patent for that. The method.
Really? Like the turning on the button and flinging
One
it
of the
across
funniest
the
things
globe?
you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Got to send you that. But so a lot of our patents that we've done, our process is you file the patent. Once the application is filed, you have the protection. Then you go get a university partner, some kid to do it as a senior project or something, right? Because that's cheaper labor, and they just want meaningful things to work on.
Yeah.
So
It benefits both of you.
Yeah.
It's free work for you, and it's an actual thesis for them.
yeah, I mean, you just got it. So I think a good skill that anybody creative should have is to know how to do a patent search. Find out, is there something already out there like it?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to kind of become a lawyer in a sense to defend it and and show why yours is different. And so on this patent I did with McKenna on the high jump patent, that I'm proud of that because I wrote most of that myself because I had done enough of them where I thought I kind of knew the lingo, and our patent lawyer cleaned it up and helped me out. But a lot of what's there, and so I think there were like 12 other patents cited that I had to go through the case of why ours is better than that one, and why ours is better than that one, and what we do different than that one. And for a lot of detecting a body in motion, a lot of it is you have to put markers on the person.
Yeah,
right?
it's like mocap.
mocap,
The dots, things like that. And so finding a way to do it without that was, that's one of the features of our high jump patent, where they don't have to wear anything special.
Which is great.
Right.
They can just do what they do as they do it, and you just observe them and can detect.
So imagine you doing that for a movie, like having an actor and actually not having to put them in the suit with all the dots. And I think they'd be able to emote way better.
Without being in that funky
without
suit.
having, actually being able to be in their character, in their costume.
You may be able to compound on that thing, because for yours, for the purpose of high jumping, I mean, I'm sure people know what it is, but I envision on each upright, there's like a big square.
You've read it.
Oh yeah, I have. Sorry.
That's totally what it is.
So it's a big square of two bits communicating with each other.
Yep.
But that kind of limits the lines of communication. For Casey's idea with eliminating the need for mocap, it would have to be a whole room lined in those lasers.
It's like a holodeck,
to read.
But instead of putting holograms inside, you're just reading the motion of the thing that's inside.
It's just the communication and reading the differences. Because then you have a whole room to act in or perform a whole scene or whatever, and then it reads the entire thing. But then, like with mocap, they put bits on the face, and like, would it be able to read? Like, if you make a scrunchy face, will it be able to read your scrunchy face? Like, it depends on the array, I guess.
So one of the things they do in all patents that do sensing of some kind, like this one, is you start saying, a preferred embodiment is this, and you explain that we're going to use this array of IR beams across the space to then detect and fit a parabola and do blah blah blah, right? But then at the end you have and of course we could do this with lidars and radars and blah blah. You name every possible sensor ever known to man. You broaden the scope from your preferred embodiment,
so that someone else can't write the same one, but I'm going to use lidar or like whatever.
Exactly, right. So you try to create that. So
when that same patent then expand, if a production company wanted to use it for mocap purposes, would they use that patent, or would that be a separate patent?
So it depends. You have to find something. There's 3 requirements for a patent. So you have to have it's got to be novel. It's got to be non-obvious, which is a hard one. But the non-obvious piece is really, that a smart engineer couldn't read this and go, I'm going to put those together and make this new thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they go through every publication ever written, whether it's patent applications or an article, the history of publication applies. And it's really, they say, well, if you took this magazine article from 1963 and this patent from Japan and put them together, a smart person would come up with what you came up with. They're really like,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's really nuts to try to, and sometimes, you submit a patent and you don't know that someone else filed it, 5 days before you until the 3-year waiting period is passed. And say, sorry.
Kind of like CRISPR. you know, with MIT and
Yep.
what's the other college? Stanford, I think. The
Yeah.
two of them are competing for the CRISPR because it was literally like days of each other. They filed
Wow.
patents.
Yeah.
What are the odds of that?
Yeah.
Sounds like sabotage.
Because the rules changed recently in the last few years with patents. It used to be there was what was called a priority date, where if you could show evidence in a notebook, right? For example, if you're talking about that on this date I wrote this and Casey initialed as my witness that I talked to him about this idea on April 10th, 2011. That's your priority date. And we waited 5 years to file, but that's the date we thought of it. And we have this documentation.
So you need to prove that you came up with the idea
Now,
first.
patent office said, enough of that. First to file.
Oh,
First to
but
file
there's-
owns the idea.
but that's
that's
money.
the-
Isn't it expensive to file a
But
patent?
that's kind of the thing between MIT and Stanford, I believe, with
Yeah.
CRISPR is like one of them, there's like an ability to pay extra for like a rush review. And I think one of them paid for the rush review, and that's the one that was initially given the patent, even though the other one filed it before. So I think that's where the lawsuit was coming in.
That bothers me because then it has to do with money and pockets, and that's
Well,
one of the biggest gripes I have with technology.
There are a
Anyway.
few things you can pay extra for. One is early publication, and I actually did that on the high jump patent because one of the goals was to get it out there, for McKenna to use if she wants in her college applications and
Yeah.
Oh,
things.
yeah.
Right? Because that doesn't hurt you, right? If you're
No.
17 and you have a
patent?
application,
Yeah, that's no small.
that's going to
feat.
help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did pay the early publication on that to just because the timelines are still brutal with the patent
Yeah.
office, right? They're catching up now, and it's only a 3-year wait to have the examiner look at it.
Yeah.
So and actually, it's funny the one that was granted recently where thought that we did joint patents with Toyota, and so this one Toyota's legal department was handling. I thought they just gave up and said, "Look, we're not going to chase that one anymore."
Yeah.
Next thing I know, I get this thing from a company that makes plaques that says, plaques, congratulations on your patent. I'm like, what?
What patent?
And it's like this one I thought Toyota dropped years ago.
Yeah.
And I think what literally happened was an examiner retired and just gave the pile to someone else who just said, granted.
Oh.
Oh, maybe.
Something
Hey,
happened.
man.
That
Yeah,
was,
it got through.
Yeah. Who knows how it works there.
So
Maybe
that-
when I retire, I'll go be a patent examiner.
That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
By the
Isn't
time
that
you
what
retire,
Einstein did? He worked in a patent office, right?
What's that?
Didn't
he was a
Einstein?
clerk
Oh, yeah.
in the patent office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
By then, though, I mean, you'll be an expert.
Yeah.
After
Well,
all the hoops you've had to jump through.
I think we're about out of time. We're
We
over
are.
an hour.
So?
Yeah.
Wow, that went quick.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So Midsummer Scream is a week and a half away
Oh, my God.
out at the Long Beach Convention Center. It's going to be July 29th and 30th.
Mm-hmm.
3 Decade Brigade shows each day. Saturday at 2:30, and I believe it's Classroom A, I want to say. I have a class, so come out. I know it's right when the big Knott's Berry Farm presentation ends, but if you think you're going to be late because you want to join the Knott's panel, come late anyway, and learn how to make slider gloves. And anything else?
No.
All right. Well, that's it. So.
Oh, I guess
wait.
if we're doing Midsummer Scream, we probably shouldn't do Scare Relay, too.
Yeah, well,
Not to
Scare
suggest
Lays-
either one.
Scare Relay is the next weekend, August 5th and 6th at the Los Angeles Convention Center this year. They're moving from Pasadena to Los Angeles. And come out to our brand new Decade Brigade booth. We've spent a lot of time designing and coming up with a really cool new booth design. So it's not just going to be, a pop-up with a table. It's going to be something really cool. So come by, check it out, buy some merchandise, support the team.
Mm-hmm. So that's all the logistics part. Jim, thank you so much for coming and talking about all that stuff. And I mean, for the audience's sake, like Jim is he's my family member there, but he's a mentor and a father figure and somebody very important in my life. So I'm very glad that you came to visit us. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
been
you
really
both
cool
for
to talk to
having me.
you.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
And be sure to follow us on iTunes and currently on SoundCloud. Who knows what's going to happen with SoundCloud? There's rumors that they may be going out of business
I don't wanna
by
talk
quarter
about
4. So we may have to move our podcast to a new host, but we'll let you guys know what's going on with that later. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Tales from the Fog. And until next time, we'll see you in the fog.
Bye, guys.